I remember my uncle came to visit in October, and I remember he left about after a month, 3 weeks, and he was very, very sad. And he said to my aunt, who told my mother, that he just felt like he wasn't going to see his best friend again. His best friend was my father. 3 months later, my dad died. Paul speaking rings out a very interesting truth to me. He tells all of these priests of the early church, the presbyters, as he calls them, I will call them priests, you won't see me again. And they cried. See, we were made to be communal people. We were made to be among one another, to enjoy our lives, praising God, defying this world, and enjoying it anyway, but enjoying it in the way that Jesus intended us to enjoy. Like my uncle said, he was sad because somehow he knew he would never see my father's face again. It kind of reminds me, I guess, like Paul talking to his priests, because they are the priests of the early church. They called them presbyter, but I'll call them priests. And they were sad because Paul taught them a great deal. He didn't teach them through kindness or generosity necessarily. He worked very hard. But he even said, I'm not working for gold or silver, I'm working for souls. Essentially, Paul was always trying to get people to come to the truth, that is Jesus Christ. And he says to his priests, he says, be vigilant, keep guard over yourselves and over your flock. You know, we all need to be careful about the words that we say, the things that we allow our brain to see, whether it's through music or movies. We all have to be very careful, because in all of that is this way that we will slide away from Christ. It's so easy to sit there and do the complaints and go, Jesus, you know, you're just too hard. You don't understand the world. You're antiquated. Your rules are ridiculous. But no, Paul is giving a very distinct warning. And I think that we should recognize that this is a very current warning. Because he even tells his priests, don't get soft, because I'm throwing, you know, the wolves will be after you. And not only that, but even from within you, the priests, the presbyters of this church, there will be those who step out and try to teach untruths. The scandals that we have, they were always predicted in the Bible. And why is that? Because we are human. We are flawed. And this world, it entices us. It was interesting because yesterday I watched a horror movie with my husband, and it was about this young girl who finds this Chinese wishing box. And she's super unpopular, and she gets bullied all the time. She has a crush, of course, on the coolest guy in the school, who just happens to be dating the most beautiful girl. And they're vicious to her. I mean, no doubt. They are horrible to her. They beat her up. They do all sorts of horrible stuff. And so she finds this wishing box because her dad digs through the junk and her mom committed suicide. And, you know, it's a very dysfunctional family. And she just grabs the box up and she says, I wish this girl would rot. And so the very next day, the girl wakes up and all of her skin is rotting. And she has this disease where, you know, they're removing toes and amputating, and they're laughing about it. And albeit this girl was an absolute nightmare. So the girl keeps going on, and, you know, she finds her dog dead. You know, after that wish, she finds her dog dead. And she's really, really sad because it was the dog her mom gave. And so, but she still wants more. So she starts to, you know, wish for other things, you know, that her uncle who died after another wish would give all of his inheritance, and so they're automatically rich. And then she wishes to be the most popular girl in school, but each and every time she wishes, someone close to her dies. Okay? And at the end, she begins to realize this, and one of her best friends says, get rid of the box, but she doesn't. and one of her friends dies tragically. At that point, she's trying to get rid of the box, but she can't. And as I'm going through this entire movie, the whole thing it just screamed to me of materialism, this world, everything she wished for. She didn't wish for a cure for cancer. She didn't wish for a cure for mental illness because her mother died. No, she was embarrassed of her dad at one point. So she wished he wouldn't embarrass her and he became super hip and super cool instead of just the dad who raised her the best he could. It was very, very selfish. And even when her friend was trying to save her life, she didn't want it. She wanted that wishing box. And she kept wishing. And finally, at the end, she just wished she went back to the day she got the box so that she could get rid of it. But she ended up dying. Everyone else lived, but she ended up dying. That's the problem when you wish for this world and the materialisms of this world. That is what Paul is trying to tell us. When we turn ourselves away from Jesus Christ, we are going to lose. And Christ, we're doing a Bible study. We're reading the chapter of Matthew. Christ doesn't tell us he loves us. He shows us he loves us. He shows how. He warns us that if we don't spend time with him, he won't know us. And then when we call him, Lord, Lord, he won't know us. It's kind of like, a child screaming mom in the mall when they're lost. That mom will recognize that child's voice. Everyone else will not. Well, if you never got to know Jesus and you're crying, Lord, Lord, how can he find you? And that's all our fault. That is completely our fault. We sit there and we make an excuse. I'm going to walk away from the church because of the scandals. Well, Paul predicted the scandals. We have to stand up and continue to fight for truth and justice. We leave because of COVID-19. Well, you know something? We have to have a little bit of courage and confidence that we were made for the next life too. And we do our social distancing. We practice safe habits, but you know what, if we're willing to go grocery shopping and if we're willing to go out to a restaurant or do these different things, we ought to be willing to go to mass and worship. At the end of the day, it's all about humility. And what is the gospel about? Total humility. Jesus is walking to his death. Now, what would happen if you walked to your death? Would you be praying for courage to put up with it? I would. Jesus isn't praying for courage. He's praying for us. He's praying for us who are faithful, who say yes, who want him, and are going to struggle through the wolves of this world. It's a beautiful world, but there's a lot wrong with it. And I seek and I desire God, his kingdom. Oh, Jesus. Help me be more like you. Reflect on what I said for a minute and come up with your own plan. For when Paul did his speech, he knelt down with all those priests as they kissed and cried. And he prayed. The last thing he did was pray. How's your prayer life going? Don't give me the excuse it's bad. We've had nothing but time. Maybe you need to define who your God is and start fighting for the truth, looking to Paul, who will guide you to Jesus, not through soft, sweet words, but the truth.
I stand before you now. The greatness of your renown. I have heard of the majesty and wonder of you, King of heaven. In humility I bow as your love. Wave after wave crashes over me, crashes over you